Thanks for that lovely introduction. And thank you to Fred for stepping in. How many people here saw this and were like, oh God, another AI talk? Oh God. It's okay, this is a safe space. You're allowed to hate it. I do too. I started off pretty cynical. It is my default stance, I will say that. But I have come on a long journey when it comes to this AI stuff. I know I'm not the only one here. There's a lot of hype, and I think to people like us, like one of our superpowers is that we are extremely, I don't want to say allergic, but find it very off-putting. We find hype very off-putting. And underneath the hype is a reality, though, that it is the advent of a new kind of computer, and a lot of things are changing, which is why I think it is so important that we change a little bit with it. The origin story of this talk was Lex Neva of SRE Weekly was talking to me about how every day he gets pitches from vendors selling their AI SRE thing, and they read like advertisements. And Lex writes back, basically going, show me the money, show me the evidence, and never hears from them again. And he wrote this lovely, well, it was actually based on an email that he was literally sending to all these AI SRE vendors. I encourage you to write it. I dropped the link there. He's basically just like, the way to gain an SRE's confidence is examples, data. Let me know that you know how this thing could fail. And again, here's nothing back. Shortly after he wrote this blog post, Lex went to work at NVIDIA. So he is now getting paid lots of money and has lots of NDAs, which is why my dear friend Fred is presenting this with me.
So I went online and I checked for all the AIOps vendors and the kind of claims they were giving us. And I saw stuff like, this is going to be your new SRE, your SRE companion. It answers every question, reviews pull requests, proactively monitors and alerts about infra. Sounds kind of nice. Adaptive learning and zero maintenance mechanism that reduces firefighting. I'm starting to doubt it a little bit. Adaptive learning and quick automatic root cause identification. Now I have feelings.
Cool.
Root cause as a service. It's like, hell yeah. Yeah, like all of Lex's money goes into that. Full understanding of the app, finds the root causes, suggests the fixes, generates post-incident analysis.
Finally, someone has full understanding of the app.
I can go on vacation. Great. AI SREs going from supervised to unsupervised work, eventually doing most of the work autonomously.
Damn.
Absolutely great. This is really interesting, right?
As journalists would say, big if true. Or as we would say, So when I was talking with Lex about this, I started getting flashbacks, and I realized for the first 3 or 4 years of Honeycomb, I had a tab open the entire time with this blog post of John Allspa's, which was called An Open Letter to Monitoring Metrics and Alerting Companies. This will be an unsolved problem, always. Don't tell me how your software is going to fix it for me. Show me you're trying to build a product that is going to join my team as an awesome team member. Tell me how what you're building is going to make my people better. And obviously this was a huge inspiration for everything we've been building at Honeycomb, but it really, 9 times out of 10, it is so resonant today. I really wanted to just see like an open letter to all AI, SRE, and AI ops companies, because it's so resonant. It's not 10 times out of 10, but 9 times out of 10, when you're hearing people freaking out, getting anxiety and just like angst, for me, it's been a really useful test to just substitute AI with automation, because so much is not actually new. It's just an accelerated version of what we've been dealing with ever since looms were invented to replace weavers.
And the interesting part about doing that sort of substitution is that we have a lot of experience putting automation in practice, deploying it coming from before computers, like there was automation already. And so there's a set of questions I like to ask myself that I think we should ask ourselves every time we're given a kind of new automation task that would be in there. And that works exceedingly well still with AI agents, especially the ones that are like root cause as a service. The first one is, are you supervising or being augmented? We've all seen probably at this point the ideas of something like the Tesla self-driving car, where you have to have your hands on the steering wheel, and if you don't, it stops being there. Your job is to make sure that the car doesn't make a mistake. And people don't like to do that, right? They were having videos online of you wedge an orange or a water bottle on the steering wheel, and then you can watch a movie while the car is driving itself. We know that being in a kind of supervision mode does not work well. It is true with the Tesla self-driving cars. It was true with airplanes. It was true in the 80s when Bainbridge published The Ironies of Automation. And it is true when it's also Copilot and you're just looking at the code and going like, yes, no, yes, no. You are the supervisor and you are being taken out of the active work. And all of this sort of comes back to this image here. This is something called Fitts list. It is the idea that the humans are good at one thing, the machines are good at one thing. So you let the machine do the good thing and you let the humans do the good thing. And that puts you usually in the supervision seat of looking at it and having a bit of judgment that the machine doesn't have. This is wrong. This is not necessarily how it works. The things we're looking for is more of a joint system of teamwork. The machine is supposed to give more capacities to the humans. The humans is going to steer the machine in the right direction, but we are all stuck together in the same system. A notebook with text on it is part of that system. This is how we make decisions. This is how we communicate. This is how we do this stuff. And people need to be involved to stay current with what they have. Where you are in the loop kind of matters, right? If you are in front of the AI, you're going to get different results than if you are behind the AI and supervising. If you have a team of 3 people making decisions, they're going to work differently than a single person. If you put one AI in the group, it's going to be different. When someone tells you there's a human in the loop, ask where it is in the loop, right? Because otherwise, you might just be the scapegoat for decisions rather than really part of the team with it. Another one is like, what are the perspectives that it bakes in? Each of these agents has a limited universe. David Woods talked about that. There are limitations. If the only thing you plug into your AI are going to be your observability data about your systems and the components, you are never going to get a suggestion out of the agent that tells you how to rework your team structure. It doesn't know about your team. So these things are inherent limitations that you have in there. Likewise, it's going to have limited operations in what it can do, the same way that you can limit the permissions of a user in your system. It will not know about major sections of your socio-technical system. It will ignore many of them. And one of the risks about that is that if what you have is something that is made to act and look like an agent, like a person that you can talk to and do everything, but it has the capacity of a limited tool, you're having the wrong interface, which is why the image here is trying to drive a bicycle with a PlayStation 5 controller. Right? This is often what we're being sold, something with the ability of a tool, but the interface of talking to someone. And that's extremely misleading, and that contains inherent risks.
Yeah, so many of these really boil down to, is it making you better at your job the longer you interact with it, or is it making you worse at your job the longer you interact with it? Another one is, how good is it at delivering what it promised? Nothing ever delivers what it promises. This is why marketing and engineering are 2 very different organizations. It won't be perfect, even if you need it to be. One of a common trope in incident response, though, is heroes, people who get so used to doing the diving save, right? They know everything about the system, and they end up becoming these very, very critical bottlenecks in all emergencies. They can't go away on vacation. They can't get married, go on honeymoons. Ask me what it's like to be on a beach in Hawaii at 3 a.m. and getting a call from your CTO because they can't get MongoDB back up. This is a huge anti-pattern with people. It's going to be just as big of an anti-pattern with AI agents. If your agents are taking some type of issues and handling all of them, Are they becoming heroes? What do you do if they break or misbehave, if your people no longer know how to debug it? It's also possible that AI could remove large portions of our jobs, or all of our jobs themselves. But if they try, they're going to create new needs, new challenges, new needs for expertise. Any addition that you make is not going to do just what you want or what you expect.
Yeah. Surprises are sort of par for the course. And one of the interesting things as well is always who is ultimately accountable for it. When you are using some sort of technical solution, there's this sort of angle between augmenting the person or augmenting the machine. When you augment the machine, the sort of thing that tends to happen is like the basic common operations get done at a higher pace. They're faster. You can do a lot more with the same amount of effort. The difference when you augment a human is that generally you take the most challenging tasks and you're able to make them a lot easier. And that has a bit of a different alignment in what it provokes. Because if you have augmented only the machines all the time and they start breaking, then you're never in pace again. If you are augmenting the humans, there's a broader range of things you can do that you can deal with. And one of the things that I like to do when we are being given tools about operations and whatnot is ask, like, does it let me explore better? Can I see the whole richness of everything, but just go through it with more ease, getting the full perspective and the context along with it? Or maybe it tells me where to look, right? It shows all the data, but there's a little highlight where I can put my eyes and I still see what's around, but it drives my attention somewhere. More restrictive, it filters out the things you don't want to see. It goes like, here's relevant information. And now if I want to challenge that information, it's up to me to make the effort to go look elsewhere because it's not shown to me. And then in some cases, it's going to be even more restrictive. It's going to tell you like, something is happening. You should maybe do this operation, restart whatever, install, upgrade, change this configuration. And now I'm taking a bit even more out of the context. And all I have to judge is this narrow path that the automation has chosen for me. In some cases, you're going to get the worst part of it, which is just like, do this thing. It tells me what to do. There's no alternative. I am here to be the automation's hands. The issue with that is that it's walking you down a very specific path. But who does the adapting is how you know who's responsible for the outcomes of it. It could be who learns something out of an incident when something goes wrong. Who does the fixing, right? The AI did the wrong thing. Who goes behind and fixes it? Does the AI fix itself? Who puts the new guardrails in place? Who even decides that there's an incident right now and the wrong thing is happening? Who can change the definition of what is an incident? That this is the new normal, it is okay. Who adapts when new information comes up? And the thing that's interesting is that if you take these two columns together, on the left, you can be put on a path where you don't have the agency of the ownership. You are given a set of consequences, and then you are told to own them, but you aren't given the opportunity to do the proper thing. So you have to really, really think about that when you are handed automation. Overall, like if I had to do a too long didn't read for vendors, it would be these three keywords. Join. I want you to build a team player. This is what you're advertising. It needs to be able to act like one. If it is not able to act like one, then do the right thing and just be the tool you are actually able to be. Do not look like a person when you have the tool's capacity. In my mind, this is why we see a lot of people like trading prompt information like they're magic incantations. They are people trying to force the AI to do the exact thing they want because they have the ability of a tool, and we're trying to make them predictable enough to use them in a very specific context. And this is going to happen, and this is part of the challenge. And we go, the non-determinism is fantastic, but we're still struggling to contain it because a tool that you can't predict is not a good tool. It's just a thing that can sow chaos. Second one is extend, right? It's give more powers to existing agents, integrate the workflow, give them new abilities or improve them. And the last one is grounding your information. Again, these patterns are known. There's a long history of studying them. Even if like AI has plenty of new ways of doing things, they're fundamentally often similar patterns. And so you need to be able to show that you've explored this, thought about this, rather than trying it on me in my organization, and I do all the finding out for you fucking around.
Yeah. So Fred and I start working on this talk, and at some point they upgraded us to the closing keynote, which is very nice of them. But we started thinking of, actually, vendors don't actually give a shit about all this nice advice that we're pulling together for them. Or we don't expect them to. Maybe they will. But we do expect you to care, right? We do expect you to care a lot. And I feel like there's a moral authority that people in this room have by willing to the thing that earlier when it said that the person who is accountable is the person who does the adapting, oof, that hits me in the feels. There's a moral authority that you accrue when you're willing to do the hard things, to run towards the fire, to be woken up in the middle of the night. Not that we're all like glamorizing hero culture, but I feel like people who do hard things earn the right to ask the organization to change in certain ways. We have long been the guardians of risk. I was thinking about all the ways that this role has changed over the past, as long as I was like one of the very last generation of ops folks who would get a call on a phone in the middle of the night, call a taxi to go to the colo to flip a power switch on the MySQL primary when it went down because we didn't have remote hands, I was like 19, I got to do that. I'm like, well, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Surprise. We've long, and what I think that our role really boils down to is this. We are the guardians, we're the shepherds of risk for complex software systems. And AI is a bunch of very complex software systems, and we are needed more than ever. There is an unprecedented amount of risk to be evaluated and guarded against. But to truly meet this moment, I think we also have to evolve. There's no way to talk about risk management without acknowledging that for most companies, the biggest low-level, ongoing existential risk that they face is not innovating, not moving fast enough.
You can run out of nines for reliability, but you can also run out of nines in your bank account.
Yes. The pressures are not just technical.
No.
They are also financial, leadership, organizational.
Right, and proper handling of risk is being able to handle these trade-offs and not necessarily hold fast for one position. It's easy to become the sort of department of no. I think if we haven't felt we were doing it, we've maybe felt it with the security team at the places we work at. And that's often a model we don't want to be. That's a model the security teams themselves don't want to be.
Yeah, I really feel like that is the single biggest reasons that ops departments are an endangered species, because they were, they were seen as the department of no, they were seen as a cost center. And increasingly, when you've got technical teams, all of us are in the business of generating value. If you're in the business of being a pure cost, it's not a great place to sit. This is a season of great change. And where there is change, there is opportunity. This stuff is changing so fast, dude. 2 years ago, generative AI is coming out, and I think it was really easy for a lot of us to write it off as just fancy autocomplete, because that's what it was. That's not what it is now. Honestly, anyone who makes confident statements about the future more than a year or two out is full of shit. And the more confident they are, the less you should listen to them. I really get being exhausted by the gold rush, like I am too. And the fact that AI seems to be just invading every space. Nothing is immune. I've been on Honeycomb sales calls when we bring up the topic of AI and people their eyes just glaze over and they're just like, oh, you too. I'm developing a bit of a callus for these topics. The way that everybody feels that they have to slap AI on some bullshit. I was telling Fred, I'm like, anymore I see AI next to a feature, it just tells me it's alpha quality. Because as soon as something is dependable and reliable and works really well, they don't call it AI anymore. Nobody is like, Gmail, AI spam filters. No, they've been AI for 20 years, and yeah.
It's one of the things that to me lines up with the idea of if your AI respects its limits and it's well usable, it becomes a tool.
Exactly.
Spam is a tool. Spam filtering is a tool. It's AI technology. It's well constrained. It does its one thing. It gains a name. It stops being AI because we know how to use it and it is well instrumented.
Yeah, there is some interesting new, like the advent of non-determinism into a software engineering discipline that is predicated on determinism is super interesting. What are APIs even if you can't rely on the answer? It's super interesting. And I don't have the answer, right? What I do know is that the future is being created right now, and the future needs people like us, people who are critics, people who are naysayers, people who are always thinking about how shit is gonna break. But in order to be part of the conversation, we do need to appreciate the opportunity. We need to overcome our tendency sometimes to always look how it will fail and not move past that. And even if you don't believe this, even if you don't want it to be true, people with money think that it's true. I sit in this really weird place now between like people, like I feel like you all are my people, right? This feels like home to me. I sit between engineers and managers and execs and board members and venture capitalists, and they see the world very differently than we do. VCs are now, they're like, well, we see the world as being, there are pre-AI companies, pre-LLM, and post-LLM. And next time we go out for money, we're going to be being compared again in terms of efficiency next to startups that were founded, post-LLM and are doing just as much stuff with only 5 people. And even if we don't think that's true, people are going to be looking at us and going, with their skeptical hats on. And honestly, if there's one lesson that I would take away from my career, it's that whenever you're being asked to do something from up above that doesn't make sense to you, it's probably coming from someone who's facing a set of pressures and expectations that you don't know about or don't understand.
Yeah. And this is where there's maybe an opportunity to be empathetic with that level of, we don't know the pressures, but that's what we learn to do in incident reviews. When something weird and completely stupid happens, you're told to be blame aware and sort of go like, what made it reasonable at the time? And so if you're asked to slap AI in a way that doesn't make sense, it is possible that your execs, your people above you are reacting to similar pressures, and then you can become an ally in doing it in a non-stupid way. Because it is a stupid demand sometimes, and you just need to articulate it in a proper way. This was true before then. I was working at a company before where director of engineering drops by, is like, we have 6 months to migrate away from AWS into GCP. And the infra team is just like, this is fucking stupid, we're not doing it. And for like 4 months, they're sandbagging it. It's like, we're not doing it. It's just like, not, you can fire the entire team, you're stuck not having your migration. Who gives a shit? And at the 4th month, the director finally goes and says, just like, we have funding, but it's contingent on moving. And the infra team is like, fucking finally, we're gonna do it. 6 weeks, it's done.
Which is why the corollary to this is, come on, you guys. Like, I have it's uncanny how similar a story I have, like at Parse, which has been about 10 years I can talk about this now, right? So many times at Parse, I felt like they were just asking me to do things. It just, I didn't make sense. And so I spent all my time fighting with my boss. And if he had just told me, we're really scared that Facebook is gonna shut Parse down if we don't find a way, I would have been like, I could have helped, right? Instead of fighting him the whole way, I could have helped. And I know that like, transparency can be hard, but I really do think it's worth it. Especially, Fred said a phrase when we were out there madly rehearsing it an hour ago. He was like, SRE is a high context role. We thrive on context, and we can be trusted, right? There's so much sensitive data, sensitive shit that goes on. So like, let's show up, let's show that we can be trusted, but then let's expect some fucking transparency as well. If people can't trust you with the true story about what's going on, then they maybe don't deserve your labor. If there's one thing we're good at as SREs, it's learning what needs to be learned, figuring it out, whatever it is. I read this piece by Annie Vella the other day, and I really recommend looking it up. It's called The Software Engineering Identity Crisis, and it really speaks to just so many of the emotional reactions that those of us who have built our careers, much of our lives on being builders, craftspeople, and the sort of the feeling of, as being a supervisor doesn't feel as good, And I was in love with it, the essay, all the way down. And then at the end, the very end, she was like, and the engineer manager pendulum shows us a possible path. And I was just like, well, shit, I like it even more now. If the history of technology tells us anything, it's that the skills we have spent a lifetime building and mastering will still have relevance if they expand to embrace the new. As SREs, to be an SRE is expect the worst. This is their great strength. It can also be our downfall. I tell this joke a lot about how ops engineers don't usually start companies because you need to be able to suspend disbelief to envision something dramatically better that exists. And I just don't really have it. The fact that it's like a cosmic accident of the universe. And Christine, the entire time, has been like, well, maybe this will work. And I'm just like, here are 10 ways that it won't,
And this is a huge balance generally for the whole AI rush of people chasing huge rewards and then us seeing a huge amount of risk.
Huge.
And we're going to be always focused on the risk because this is what we do. And the execs are going to be, or the founders are going to be focusing on the rewards because this is what they do.
This is what they do.
And at some point, if you want to be able to articulate properly between both of these, you have to have that understanding to be able to meet them where they are, so there's a hope of them meeting you where you are, which of course can break down on either sides. At least we're giving ourselves a change if we're not breaking it down on our end, going fuck this, I'm out, I'm just not touching this ever. There's a need to sort of do a bit of work towards them to understand what's going on in order to be able to have the conversation where you have a bit of that control and ability to steer how it is being implemented in your business.
Yeah. Which is why there's a lot of fear and anxiety in the world today for very good reasons, but I would like to challenge each of us here today to think a little bit about the role that we want to play in the future of our industry. Don't just read a bunch of white papers about risks and complicated cognitive factors and then sit back and assume it will never work. Don't just lead with critique and stop there. At least try to understand why some people are so excited. And for God's sake, don't let your own identity to get wound up and attached to AI failing. I really think that I see people do that. If you find yourself rooting for it to fail, because the idea of AI succeeding fills you with fear and anxiety, I challenge you to turn that into curiosity.
Yeah, when I saw this slide, I just sort of tried vibe coding, and I sort of was like, oh, fuck, no, come on. I don't like it. This is stupid, I don't like it. I know where this is going. It's not going to end well, but there's a bunch of engineers at work who are trying it, who are kind of believing in it. And once again, if I just tell them, what you're doing is stupid, you're an incompetent engineer that don't believe in it, it's just going to end in tears, it's not going to work, right? It's still the same thing as being in an incident of sort of going, why is it making sense for them? If I want to have any chance of them using the tool properly, I have to be able to understand where they're coming from, what are their pressures, and it is dire out there for junior engineers who just think, I have to churn code faster than before because otherwise I'm going to lose my house. And yeah, I still think vibe coding is kind of stupid. I don't like it. I'm not going to do it. It's not how I work. But I can understand where they're coming from because I'm at a different place in my career with a different level of authority and a different backing for everything. And you might want to try it to know how it's going to fuck up as well and walk it with them. At some point, it's just this is how people work, and you have to understand how they work to design things properly for them. You have to have that give and take. That dialogue is necessary to get good solutions. If you just go and think the operators are morons, they're not going to get good results. If you think the engineers are morons, they're not going to get good results. And so, yeah, I like the face that is upside down. It comforts me. But at some point, I'm going to have to try it. Just to hate it better, maybe. But
I'm going to live blog it. And finally, do you have moral, ethical objections or qualms about AI and its effect on artists, the environment? I do too. I think it matters even more to become an expert, or at least up close and personal with this stuff. You can't ship principles. Can't help solve collective action problems by opting out of them. There was a great phrase from earlier, I don't remember who did it, but like, you can't stop a train by jumping in front of it.
that was me.
I like that. If you want your critique to be heard, it needs to be an informed critique. Society is full of people just throwing stones from the outside. We're pretty immune to them. We can shrug them off as haters. Haters gonna hate. Critiques from the inside can cut deep. So, in conclusion,
Yeah.
SREs expect the worst, but
I have to keep working for like the best results anyway. It's the mix between like pessimism but pragmatism at the same time.
any questions?